What if you could breed two different Pokemon to make an entirely new one? Well, we can see what that might look like with hybrid Pokemon. Hey everybody, Brandon here, and today we're covering a concept that I find to be super interesting: hybrid Pokemon. But what does that mean? Well, hybrid Pokemon was a concept that was created by @ArtistAstray over on Instagram. You've seen Pokemon fusions before, but this takes it to a different level. Rather than taking design elements from each Pokemon, they took a look at the concepts of each Pokemon and fused those together. It's a little hard to explain, so we'll just take a look at one to show what I mean. So first up, we have Snoozecub, which is a hybrid between Teddiursa and Cubchoo. As you can see, elements of Teddiursa and Cubchoo have been combined to make an entirely new concept for a Pokemon. The little snot that was running off of Cubchoo's nose has been turned into this little cartoonish sleeping nose bubble. Snoozecub is a normal ice type, combining the two types between Cubchoo and Teddiursa. Anyway, enough explaining, and now let me just talk about this amazing Pokemon. I love Snoozecub. I think this thing is adorable. I do really love how, @ArtistAstray incorporated the concept of that snot bubble into a snoozing bubble. Super cute. Also, it says in its dex entry that it has really cold body temperature, so it's like constantly hibernating. So like the combination of Teddiursa and Cubchoo has made this weird conglomeration where it can't quite regulate its body temperature, so it's always just sleeping. You kind of see what I mean, how it's different from just regular fusion. But another aspect of this concept that is interesting and makes it different from Pokemon fusions is how these hybrid Pokemon evolve. So here we have Grizznor, the evolution of Snoozecub, and as you can see, it doesn't look anything like Beartic or Ursaring. It's its own individual design and concept that is evolved from the initial hybrid Pokemon, which makes this so interesting to me because there's endless possibilities. Grizznor's design is really cool though, like pun intended. It kept a little snooze bubble from Snoozecub that I liked so much, as well as it has these things hanging off the side of its face. It almost looks like it's wearing some kind of pelt in a way, like some kind of saber-toothed tiger Pokemon or something, with these ice spikes looking like teeth or something. The body shape reminds me of Ursaluna, even though Ursaluna did not exist when this mon was made. This was back in like 2021 when this was made. But overall, it's a really solid concept and a really solid design. Next up is one of my favorite hybrids, and it is a hybrid between Sinistea and Milcery named Cuppity, which makes complete sense because people put milk in their tea all the time. These designs blend together so well. Full pun intended yet again. But you can see the little face of Milcery in the cup, which kind of mirrors how Poltegeist looks when it's outside of the teapot. It's kind of got that face to it as well. So it blends those things together super well. And the cuteness factor of both just combines to make an ultra cute Pokemon. I love its type too, a fairy ghost type. That's such a fun type combo. I think Mimikyus are only fairy ghost type if I recall correctly. It says in its dex entry that it exudes an aroma that can make a soul leave a person's body, but this thing's making my soul leave my body based on cuteness alone. Cuppity evolves into Dolchai, which is just an excellent name, mixing dolce, which means sweet, I think, in Italian and I think Spanish as well, and putting in chai in there because that's a kind of tea. That's just brilliant. And as well as it's a brilliant design. It has a little Bo Peep kind of vibe going on to it, with its cups being turned into a full-on dress and like head bonnet, even using the spoon as kind of like that same cane that little Bo Peep has. Just a really genius way of making these two concepts evolve further from that initial combination of milk and tea Pokemon. Another really clever thing is that they combined the evolution methods of Poltegeist and Alcremie to, spinning for more than 5 seconds while holding the fancy tea set. I think that's super clever. Next up, we have Nidoran X, which is a hybrid between Nidoran male and Nidoran female. This design is really neat. I like it a lot, but it's pretty standard fare. I mean, you can see elements of each Nidoran in its design, but where it gets really interesting is when it evolves. I feel like I've been saying that a lot, but it's really true. Each time these hybrid Pokemon evolve is when they get really interesting. So here we have Nidorrook. Yes, rather than going the Nidorina, Nidorino, Nidorine X route, we went Nidorrook, which is another chess piece on the board, a rook king, queen, you know what I'm saying? This design combines some of my favorite aspects of Nidorino and Nidorina, and also gives it a second horn, which is really cool, and apparently increases its chance of poisoning Pokemon. But then it finally evolves into Nido Knight. Yes, we had the Rook before, and it evolved into a Knight, as in like the Knight chess piece as well. This design is so unique and so fun, and departs from both Nidoking and Nidoqueen in the best way, while still keeping the core elements that make them Nido Pokemon. I Nido this Pokemon, that's for certain.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
While Nidoking and Nidoqueen are kind of bulky, these big monsters, this one's kind of slim, more athletic, kind of speedy. It also has a new type in Poison Dragon, which I think is super cool and very fitting. It's like you took the dragon that the knight fights and fused it with the knight. And a part of this design that I love is it is kind of smaller and more slim than the Nidoking and Nidoqueen. It kind of feels lesser than the kings and queens, as it's supposed to, because it's a knight who serves the kings and queens. Next up, we have GlitchxCity, which is a hybrid between Purloin and Glameow. And I'm actually not as familiar with this one. I actually must have missed it or something, because I don't remember seeing this, but it's really cool. I really like how the tail looks kind of like those little feather toys that you play with your cats with. And I'm pretty sure that's intentional, because it looks like in the Dex entry, it uses its tail to like try and, you know, get other Pokemon and humans to do its bidding, which kind of plays into cat worship, like Egypt, where they had gods like Bastet, Mafdet, Sekhmet, a whole lot of Ets in there. This is another example of a perfect hybrid where you can see the elements of Glameow and Purloin coming together, but also if you didn't know that it was a hybrid, you could see it as its own completely different Pokemon, which is what I love about this concept. Obviously, this is a normal dark type, which is pretty cool in and of itself. It's kind of got that normalcy of a cat with the dark typing, kind of trickery with its, you know, command over humans and Pokemon. GlitchxCity evolves into Pandera, which is a really cool name. Kind of mixes in Panthera with Pandora, like Pandora's box, because it's also like a dark type. It's very fancy looking, very posh, looks like a rich person would own it. It even has this little scarf along its neck, kind of one of those designer cats. And as I say that, I look at the description and it says it's, you know, a model, like a Pokemon model, and it sees itself as above humans, which is such a cat thing to do. Next up, we have Angler, which is a hybrid between Bruxish and Lantern. I've always been an avid believer that Bruxish deserves more love, so I absolutely adore this design. Taking the big teeth, the crazy coloration and head flower of Bruxish and mixing it with the football fish inspiration of Lantern to make it into an actual football fish anglerfish is just genius. I think after Lantern, a lot of people want to see that more scary looking anglerfish Pokemon, which I think this design definitely exudes. It also gives me Blacephalon. Another cool aspect of these hybrid Pokemon is you can actually change their typing. With this, it can be either be a water electric or a water psychic type, depending if you give it a type capsule, which is a new item that Artist Astray made for this series of Pokemon. And here is another one of my favorite hybrid Pokemon. This is Dazzoni and is a mixture between Cantonian Ponyta and Blitzel. Absolutely, with my entire heart, I love the way these concepts came together. Taking the electricity and the fire and turning it into this staticky, fiery mane is so cool, as well as the legs having this kind of fiery energy to them and referencing Zonkies. Excellent work. Just it all comes together so perfectly and seamlessly and makes it feel yet again like its own individual Pokemon, which I love. I'm gonna sound like a broken record by the end of this video, but I can't help it because this is so cool. As you can see, this Dazzoni is actually its overcharged form, but it actually has another form. It's Psyched form, which is a mixture of Galarian Ponyta and Blitzel. As you can see, the biggest design aspect that changed is its mane. It's now fluffier, but it also has these little sparkles in it, which are actually little bits of static electricity. It also has the same energy that was flowing through the previous form's hooves, now flowing through a horn as well, which is super neat. And I just love the type combinations of these two, because you have the overcharged form, which is electric fire type, which is such a cool type combination. And then you have electric psychic type with the psyched form, which is also a really cool type combination. But wait, there's more. They evolve into Zebraze, which also has an overcharged and psyched form. And this overcharged form is so cool. Ah! It's actually hot, like very hot, as it's to the point of being like, you know, fire. The elements of electric and fire coming together to make this fiery, staticky horse Pokemon is just epic on a different level. The black, yellow, orange, reds that all come together, they just work perfectly for an electric fire type, and I just love that. It gives me huge hot rod energies with those the ones that are like painted with all the flames all over them, kind of like the one we saw in the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, you know, with the Team Star. Anyway, here is Zebraze's psyched form, and I love the changes that they made. Instead of having the face be white, it's now purple, and they changed the rest of the body to white, which is great, as well as the little pattern on the side is more like wiggly and strange, unique, if you will, kind of like the unique horn Pokemon that Galarian Rapidash is. And speaking of the horn, it almost looks like a little wizard hat on top of its head, and then has flowing magic coming out of it. Whenever I think psychic type, I think of the word weird now because of the way Dynamax Pokemon, when they used a psychic type Dynamax move, the battlefield would turn weird. So now that's all I can think of. Moving on, we have Wingdim, which is a hybrid between Vullaby and Rufflet. This is so incredibly clever because it's supposed to be like a caveman. You can see the skull has now come around its shoulder now, and it's supposed to look like those kind of like ancient garbs, those like caveman like tunics. What would you call it? Tunic? I don't know. Its name is called Wingdim because it's supposed to be kind of like a Neanderthal or like lower intelligence version of a bird Pokemon. And it evolves into Beakrude, which is like a really fun pun because it's like beak and rude, but it's also Beakrude, like the Crudes, you know, that one movie about cavemen. Beakrude actually evolves again into Barbavian, which, oh my god, that name is so good. The design itself is fairly simple. I like the little kind of like claws around the neck with the like skull helmet. It was really cool. Next up is another one of my favorites from this group, and it is Broomy, which is a hybrid between Hatena and Impidimp. And this is so freaking good. It mixes the kind of impish monster nature with the hair and kind of witch vibes of Hatena and makes kind of a classic witch, which is so freaking neat. I can't even. And its type combinations work really well. It can either be fairy psychic or fairy dark, which both make sense for this concept. An aspect that I really enjoy is it looks like it's riding its hair like a broom, which is so fun. Broomy evolves into Dwarlock. This thing is so cool, giving me Gandalf vibes, giving me Dumbledore vibes, giving me Merlin vibes. Love that. Also, you can kind of feel the darkness from it because these little symbols on its hat look like moons, but they also kind of look like the eyes of Dwarlock. And you mix in a kind of dwarf aspect in there. You can see its hands and a little bit of its face are red, kind of emulating the Impidimp line there. And the braided beard is a nice way to tie it in with Broomy. But what's this? Broomy also evolves into Grimage. This is so Gruntilda, it's not even funny, and I love that. With Dwarlock, you kind of had the reddish skin that's trying to emulate Morgrim, but this one is the greenish skin that's trying to emulate Grimmsnarl. Not only that, but it's just cool to see like a traditional witch Pokemon. That's like so fun. Next up, we have Papele? Well, anyway, it's a hybrid between Flabebe and Cottony. This thing is so adorable. I mean, it's all floofy and poofy and tiny and fair, like a little pixie. Love it. The part that makes this design for me is they took Cottony's little leaf appendages and floofiness and turned it into the hair and ears of Papele, which is so clever. Papele evolves into Bolina. It's so cute. I can't handle it. I just wish this was real. I wish this was real so bad, guys. Oh my goodness. It's so cute. A little dandelion fairy? Are you kidding me? Like, how do you get better than that? How do you get cuter than that? I don't know. I truly don't. Next up, we have Boomba, which is a hybrid between Noibat and Gabite. When I thought to make this video, this is the mon that I saw when I was just like, I need to make a video on this. Because it mixes the concepts of Gabite and Noibat so well. If you played Sword and Shield or if you've seen the anime, you've seen that Garchomp can fly around like a jet really fast. So it takes that, mixes it with Noibat, and turns it into this little itty-bitty plane Pokemon. Boomba evolves into Mako Jet, which plays into the more shark appearance of Garchomp, while still keeping those plane-like elements from Boomba. And its little ears, I guess you'd call them, are little sonar headphones. Like, they're like sonars, but they're also headphones at the same time. Also, its eyes kind of look like the front of a plane, like the front part where the pilots sit. What's the name? The cockpit. Don't know why I couldn't think of that. It combines the sound aspects of the Noibat line with the plane aspects of the Garchomp line by referencing the fact that pilots use radio to communicate with the air traffic controllers. And even having these on the side of its head references the pilots themselves who have the headphones so they can communicate while they're in the air together. All this comes across because of two little head bulbs. It's just genius. And finally, Mako Jet evolves into Jet Apex or Jet Apex. You can feel the genetics of Garchomp in here with these little side head fins that now emulate airplane turbines. And this Pokemon just looks like it's built for speed, just like Speed Incarnate, Sonic the Hedgehog, whatever you want to call it. Breaking the sound barrier at every turn. The whole line has amazing designs and amazing inspirations. And those are hybrid Pokemon, so make sure to let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and with that, I will see you guys next time.